Welcome to episode 669 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. Hey, Josh.
Richard, we don't have time for banter. There is so much to talk about, which is so weird because it's the week of Thanksgiving. There should not be this much news, but there is. Plex has a new mobile app. Sling is raising prices. Spotify. What? We have 3 different stories from Spotify to talk about.
Wow.
Sonos Arc Ultra reviews are in. Sony is doing the opposite of what Xbox just did. It's weird. We've got a lot. And we've got some good feedback. So let's jump into the feedback, Richard. This came in to us via email, even though I accidentally deleted it. Richard found it. Entertainment20 at thedigitalmediazone.com is the email address. And this is from a sharp-dressed penguin who's in the chat tonight and is regularly. You could also be in our live chat. Just follow us on Twitch or on socials, and you will know when we are going live. Anyway, here is what Sharp-Dressed Penguin had to say. For the past 30 years, I've suffered from tinnitus, and hearing in my right ear has progressively gotten worse. I've known I needed hearing aids for a while, but with all the other crap I have going on, I didn't want to deal with trying to get a referral to an audiologist. While listening to Richard talk about how the AirPods Pro 2s were the best hearing aids he's ever used, I purchased a pair. Richard, this is a friend of mine. He literally purchased them while listening to the podcast, or like immediately after that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He said setup was a bit of a pain. It kept saying that my environment was too noisy after going through the hearing test repeatedly. But I'm literally sitting in a podcast studio with soundproof foam surrounding me. Yikes. I think it may have been picking up my pulse in my ears. I can hear it sometimes when using earbuds. After the 3rd attempt, it finished the test successfully. Did you have similar struggles, Richard?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And the other issue I had was fit. Like, it was telling me that they didn't fit properly, although they seemed to fit properly. So I don't know what that was about. But yeah, the setup is fiddly.
Interesting. So he says, to test them out, I decided to pop them in for a night out with a few friends at a sports bar. It was super loud, and we were sitting next to a couple of TVs with the volume cranked up. After adjusting the amplification and turning on conversation boost, it did an amazing job filtering out a good chunk of the background noise, and it was able to hear everyone, or I was able to hear everyone, with very little difficulty, including people a couple of seats down from me. That could be fun. While it does a great job picking up speech in front of me, it also picked up the sports commentary from the TVs behind me, crystal clear, and the waiter mixing a drink in a metal tumbler 20 feet away. But even with those minor downsides, it was great spending the night listening to a conversation rather than reading lips constantly. Thanks for the recommendation, Richard.
Yeah, so hopefully this is holding up for you. I have been wearing mine a lot. I just had an appointment this afternoon with my financial advisor, and I made sure that I put them in as soon as I got out of the car. And it's funny because you start to hear things that, well, first of all, you hear things that you wouldn't hear normally, because this is like bionic hearing, right? You're hearing things that your ear isn't designed to hear natively, like the stirring of a drink 20 feet away. But at the same time, just being able to clearly pick out conversation. And that's one of the things that's really rough as you start to lose your hearing, is differentiating between noise around you and people talking. And it just becomes this mess that you have to wade through. And it's harder for your brain to do that with background noise. So, I'm glad these are working out for you. I hope they continue to. I keep on thinking that I need to retrain mine, because I literally did my training for mine in a cabin when I was at Disney World, because it came out and I'm like, I got to try this. And it was amazing to be able to hear my friend so much clearer while we were on vacation, just walking around with all the noise and stuff. So I need to do it in a more soundproof environment, and I'll probably even get better results than what I've had so far.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Richard, keep us updated. Anybody else who's giving this a try, keep us updated. I'm also curious, did your financial advisor or any other time that you've used these out in public, were people like, what are you doing, bro? Why are you wearing headphones while we're talking?
Well, no, and it's funny because as I walked in, I noticed that one of the assistants in the office had a headset on, and she, said it from across the room, "Hey, Richard, how are you?" And I'm like, "Are you on the phone?" And as soon as I said that, I thought, I wonder if they think I'm on the phone.
Right. Yikes. All right, cool. Well, thank you for that listener feedback. It's great. That's got to be one of the most impactful pieces of feedback we've ever gotten. So that's really awesome to hear. But with that, let's move on to the news for the week. And we're going to start with Plex. We mentioned a few episodes ago that Plex was going to radically overhaul their UI and strip out some less commonly used features and give us a more focused experience. And they've done that. They just released an updated version of the mobile app, although I should be extra clear and say that it's not an updated version of the app that you already have on your phone. It is a separate app. If you are on Android, frankly, if you're on Android or iOS, there's a couple of extra steps you have to take to install these because you do have to enable preview builds and all of that sort of stuff. But it's a separate app on your phone, so you can try them out side by side and see the differences. So what are the differences? Well, all of that other stuff isn't there anymore. The music isn't there. Photos, they're not there.
Yeah.
But even for the main video experience, it is a more streamlined design and no hamburger menus. If you're like, listen, guys, it's 2024, I'm done with the hamburger menu.
Thank you.
The Plex app has got you covered there. There's the main nav is really across the bottom of the phone screen, and that gives you buttons for home, my libraries, live TV, on demand, and discover. And then across the top, you've got search and watch list, and actually the cast button too, which I think is new like right now, because the article that I'm linking to in our show notes said that cast wasn't even available yet.
Oh, wow.
But they're releasing new versions of this weekly. So it's a far more like graphical app experience, way more cover art and stuff as you browse through the various libraries, and like library management seems nicer. Being able to quickly get to your watch list is nice. I like this. Richard, did you get a chance to check this out yet?
I have not, and I am eager to do so because I think, I used to rail on Plex for their inconsistent experience, for introducing things that just made no sense. And somewhere along the line, I think they made some changes to leadership of their experience group because they've been really hitting it right with the last few redesign efforts that they've had and refinement efforts that they've had. So I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm also really curious to see where they go on the big screen UI, because that's the one that I use the most. I don't often use my Plex mobile app, but I sure do use the TV app a lot.
Yeah. Same here. Like I pretty much only use the mobile app to search for things. So I really like having that search right there at the top. And then to add those things to my watch list, which is also right there at the top. But the search within Plex is the way that I find where I can watch something. Like I'm not using random websites and stuff like that. I know there are sites out there that are good at it.
Like Just Watch and stuff like that.
But Plex is really good at it. And Plex, like I went in and I told Plex, these are the streaming services I have. So it'll show me right away if it's on a service I already have. But even if it's not, I can click one button and see every place else that I could watch it. It's really nice for finding that information out. So yeah, it's only on mobile. Like I said, it is a separate app. So maybe they learned a thing or two from, I don't know, companies like Sonos who just replaced their app with an app that had far less features and made a lot of people angry. You still can do both apps on the same device for the time being. They're still planning to launch this in early 2025. They haven't said what early means, but I would guess the first quarter. And by then, it probably will replace your mainline app. But they're cranking out releases, and they're supposed to be doing new releases every single week. So head on over to Plex. Follow the notes in the forum for how you can sign up for this. If you're on iPhone, you might have already missed because app testing on iPhone is weird and complicated and tricky. And so it's typically limited to a certain number of testers, and they might have run out of them by this point. But if you've got an Android device, it's not that complicated, and you can definitely get in that way. All right. So some disappointing news. Sling raising their prices on their streaming cable TV type service.
Shocking.
Well, it's obviously sarcastic there. Like it's not surprising to hear of a streaming service raising their prices. But I think that Sling deserves a little bit of credit here because they're not doing it as frequently as everybody else, it seems.
Right. They're more or less still less than most of the other services would cost.
Yeah, exactly. And the last time they raised prices was March of 2023. That was a year and a half ago. Whereas it seems like a lot of these services are doing it at least once a year, if not twice a year. And it's not a huge jump, like maybe as a percentage of the total cost, it's kind of big. All three of their packages are going up by $6 a month. So you can do the orange or the blue package for $46 a month instead of the current $40, or the orange and blue package where you just get everything for $62 a month will be the new cost when all of this goes into effect on December 20th. The other downside of this is you're not getting anything extra out of this price increase. This is basically just them covering the cost.
Yep.
Maybe that's the most generous interpretation. I mean, they could just be lining their pockets. I don't know, but I'm going to guess that it's at least partly increased licensing cost for content.
Yeah, and we recently discussed the financial situation of this company, which is not good.
Right.
So I don't think they're lining pockets right now. I mean,
no.
Maybe, but I'm okay with this if this is what they need to do to stay alive.
Right. Especially when I'm sure it's not a coincidence that this news came out basically at the same time as the news. We didn't put this in the show notes, but we had talked a few episodes ago about a potential merger between DirecTV and Sling. That's not happening now. And surprise, now they're increasing the cost.
Right. And that puts a company in a really difficult situation. If they're anticipating a merger and then it doesn't happen. I mean, we saw that happen with the telcos as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so that puts a company in a very vulnerable position. And now they have to perform independently when they were just spending the last probably year trying to figure out, okay, well, what does this mean in terms of us becoming part of this larger group?
Right. So I hope this works. Sling does tend to be my go-to when I need one of these types of services because it's the cheapest.
No, I was going to say, why? It's not as good as
It's
the other
not as good
ones.
as the others, but it's the cheapest. And I don't really care that much about the user experience when I'm only getting these so that I can watch a hockey game every other night or whatever. It doesn't need to be great. So it's good enough for me. So I want to keep them around. But man, the fact that like the cheapest cable replacement service now is $62 a month. Wow. It's like we used to give YouTube TV a hard time for being $60 a month. And now this is like the floor.
Yeah. Remember that? I think it was $30 streaming television world we lived in for a couple years anyway.
Right. Maybe a year. Right. Yeah. When Sling first launched, I think the individual packages were $25, maybe $30.
Wow.
And I think YouTube TV started at $30 or $35 or something like that. So yes, it's gone up a lot in the 10-ish, not even 10 years, I don't think. So, all right. Well, how about we jump to some audio news? If you like Spotify, we've got a lot of Spotify news for you this week. So first off, kind of a smaller feature, but maybe kind of a lifesaver because maybe you get a little obsessive about how you manage what you've been listening to on Spotify, because I know I do. So Spotify is kind of rebuilding their ability for you to be able to find out what you've been listening to. And so now, at least on the mobile apps, everything starts on mobile nowadays. If you open up the mobile app, tap your profile photo, there's a new option in the menu called Recents, which is like, when I read it, it didn't sound weird. When I say it out loud, Recents sounds really weird.
Yeah, but as a heading, it makes sense.
Yes, because it's the things that you recently listened to, and it's plural. So you might be thinking, Josh, who cares? Like, it's just a giant list of everything you listen to, right? But it's actually functional. It's way more functional because if you spend 5 more seconds thinking about that, that could get really unruly, right? Like maybe you're listening to music all day long, but you also checked out an audiobook, or maybe you were halfway through a podcast on your way to work, and then you spent 8 hours listening to music at work, and now you want to get back to that podcast that you were listening to. Well, it can be filtered. Like you can filter this by music or audiobooks or podcast, including an extra filter for if you've saved that content. And then the other thing is that you might be thinking like, all right, well, I didn't just listen to one album. In fact, I listened to like a giant playlist, and it did that like thing where it keeps playing music after the playlist. So am I going to have like 1,000 songs to sort through to find that podcast? I mean, the filter would save you from that, but no, because it also like groups things. Like if you were listening to a playlist, it just shows that playlist, which I think is a good thing. I liked it. Maybe that's not as specific as you would like, but check it out, play around with it, see if it's useful for you. But I think it's a smart way to make it easier to find the things that you've been listening to as Spotify continues to add types of things that you can listen to.
Now, the headline that we're referencing here says something about it'll save the history for 90 days. So is that the max? It's only going to keep a max of 90 days to kind of keep it under control?
Yeah, I think so, because with as many subscribers as they have, that's going to turn into a lot of data on their servers.
Oh, totally. But I mean, they're managing that data one way or another because they're doing your end of year review and stuff like that. So they have a form of this data. It's just a matter of what they're keeping and the granularity of that for your own purposes. This is a great feature, and it's something that I think Apple Music needs to look into, because I've noticed just recently, in fact, this last week, as I scroll through the history of my playlist, like if I'm obsessed with a new song that comes out, latest example is probably Coldplay's Pray compilation I forget what the word is, but thing that they did with other artists, and there are multiple versions of it, and it's just a really cool, fun song that I've been listening to a lot. And you know what happens? It shows up all that, like, repeatedly. Not that, oh yeah, you listened to this 27 times, but it shows up in the list of stuff I've listened to 27 times, sometimes multiple times in a row, because I just played it on repeat for a while. And that's not useful to me.
Right.
So a better way of managing that information would be really welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Where this is useful for me, my one of the things that I love to do is every Friday is when all of the new music comes out. And so Spotify gives me a custom curated playlist called Release Radar of all the songs that are brand new that day that it thinks I might like. And then, because I'm a little bit obsessive, I have separate playlists that I curate throughout the year per genre, essentially. And I listen to that whole playlist and I add the songs that I like to their individual playlist. But sometimes I miss a song. And then or maybe I'll be traveling for most of the week, so I won't get to re-listen to it much. And then the next Friday comes around, I'm like, wait, there were songs that I wanted to listen to again that I didn't save, and I don't know what they were, and I'll never find them again. Now I can find them again.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay. So there's more Spotify stuff to talk about, so we should keep moving. The other two are audiobook related. First off, they signed a new deal with another audiobook publisher. This one is Bloomsbury. I'm like, I talk about audiobooks a lot on the show, but I'm still not that much of like a book nerd, right? So am I familiar with this publisher? No, I'm not.
I've never heard of them.
Am I familiar with most of these authors that are in this article? No, I'm not. I've heard of one of them, Sarah J. Maas, because Jen, my wife, loves her as an author. But it does sound like a lot of legit books and stuff in here. And it means that they're adding another 1,000 books to their library, many of which are already on Audible, but weren't in Spotify, but now they are.
So maybe this is just a scale issue for this segment, but 1,000 doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't sound like a lot when we're talking numbers on a music streaming service. Because we're used to these music services being like, we have 65 million songs in our library.
Yep.
Obviously, I think audiobooks is a much smaller total collection of available pieces out there.
Right.
But yes, 1,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but it is one publisher. And I don't know. I guess I'm hoping that it's mostly their good stuff.
Well, and maybe the idea is that this is more of a boutique publisher. I'm assuming. I don't know, because again, like you, I don't know. I think what's interesting, though, you mentioned this on last week's show, is that you still have this limit where you only get 15 hours. So I hope none of these books are longer than 15 hours, because if they are, you're not going to get to finish it in the month.
Right. Still a problem there. Yeah. But moving on to our next topic, we might be able to save you a little bit of that time, because maybe you've fallen asleep while listening to an audiobook on Spotify.
Oh, I thought you were going to say while listening to us. I'm really glad you didn't go that way.
That's probably also true. But if you did, there would be no consequences to that. However, if you fall asleep listening to an audiobook on Spotify, you're probably going to run out of that 15 hours for the month. And then you're really sunk. Like, you've got two problems. One is finding where you were when you fell asleep. And two, finding where you were a month later because you had to wait 30 days to listen to it again. So Spotify, not exactly a new idea here, but they're implementing a sleep timer when listening to audiobooks so that you don't accidentally leave it running the entire night. That makes a lot of sense. A good thing, especially in light of that 15-hour limit on audiobook listening per month. They're also adding playlist. Frankly, this feels weird to me, but some of these are curated, like a curated playlist by author or genre or things like that. Like, it kind of makes sense until you think back to that 15-hour limit again. Like, you put 5 books in this playlist. That's great. It's going to take me 5 months to get through this playlist.
Yeah, but if, for example, you're reading short stories or something like that, that could work.
Sure. Sleep timer, definitely useful. Playlist, we'll see. All right, Richard, you are our resident Sonos guy. I was going to say fan.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's what we're talking about.
Right.
If we're talking about the app, maybe not so much, although it is getting better, but it still has its problems. So Sonos has released the Sonos Arc Ultra, and this was the next-gen version of the Arc soundbar that got leaked by the press. So Sonos decided to go ahead and fess up and let people know about it, and then they put it on their website, and it's now available. It is a major upgrade from the original Arc. And a lot of people were looking at this saying, really, this is your big new product? The same thing that you put out before, just, new generation, and you're going to charge more? That's so Sonos. And yes, it is. But some of the reviews are out now, and Engadget's review of this is glowing. They really like this upgrade. And let me take you through some of the things that have improved. So first of all, it's virtually the same form factor, which is a good thing because it's a hefty size. You wouldn't want it to be any bigger, but it does fit well on a shelf with a TV if you have one of the more traditional, current TV stands for a flat screen monitor. It also upgrades so much in the technology that they're using to generate the sound. So the old Arc, you can still buy the original Arc, but the Arc that I have supports Dolby Atmos. And it does that basically with a 5.0.2 sound field that it's generating with its internal speakers. It's projecting sound around your room. You have to have a subwoofer with that to make it really sound good. And I, in fact, actually have separate back speakers, Aero 100s, to supplement that sound and make it a little better. And I don't know if that technically takes it to 7.0.7.1.2, but it's been good. It's a good soundbar for my configuration in my weird open room with a TV in a corner. Not at all the ideal situation, but it still sounds pretty good. The new Arc Pro or Arc Ultra, I'm never going to get this name right, takes that sound field up to 914. That's 9 surround channels, 1 sub channel, and 4 up or raised channels, all from the same bar. So they're packing a whole lot of additional speaker hardware in this same form factor. They have an internal sub in this so that you don't actually have to get a sub if you want some decent bass out of this thing. And again, according to this review from Engadget, it puts out some impressive lower range sound. So that's a really good thing because that was something that for a bar of this size and price, it just didn't deliver on it to be able to still have to get a sub to get good sound out of it. So I'm glad to see that. They've also added some additional software enhancements, like they have a quick optimization feature that uses the onboard microphone to do that tuning thing. So you don't have to walk around the whole room with your phone, waving it in the air, the true tone or whatever they call it. You can still do that, but they can also give you a quick sound optimization for the room, which is a nice addition. And they've improved the dialogue enhancement, which is that feature that helps you hear the dialogue over any other noise that might be going on in the scene, like music or background effects and stuff like that. I have that on just by default. I have a scene in HomeKit that as soon as my TV goes on, it switches the audio in my Sonos speaker to go to that enhanced mode. That's the only way I can actually hear dialogue in so many of these movies, the way they're recorded. So that's a great thing. I mentioned it's more expensive. It's $100 more than the Arc was. So it's Sonos's typical game plan where they put out a new version of a device and they increase the price of it. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this could have been the Arc 2, but they decided to call it the Arc Ultra and charge more for it now.
And so it's more, but it's $100 more.
Yeah, it's not
than
a
$900 soundbar.
Right. So it's $1,000 now, right?
Yeah.
So, big deal. If you're spending $900, you can probably justify $1,000. I have a dilemma here because the reviews on this have been much better than people expected. And now I'm having a little FOMO.
Well, I mean, you could get this and move the current Arc to a different TV.
Right. Well, or I was trying to think, could I just maybe use the Arc instead as a speaker in like my workshop or something? That could possibly work too. So yeah, I may very seriously be considering this as a Christmas present for myself.
I think you should, obviously.
Obviously. So, we haven't heard it ourselves. I have not seen a demo of this yet. I am hoping to when I'm at CES next month. But as of now, it's sounding really good.
Richard, it's not December yet. You can't say that CES is next month yet. Like, can we just chill out a little bit on the time continuum here?
Yeah. Okay. In a month and a week. Okay, whatever.
Cool. Well, that sounds good. And frankly, Sonos needs some wins right now. So, for what sounds like a radically improved soundbar for only $100 more, for, a little bit more than 10% more than the previous one, that actually sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah. And I'm glad for them because the headphones they put out were not a win.
Well, no, they needed a win after the headphones and the app fiasco. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to a quick gaming story. We mentioned last week how Xbox started allowing you to stream online some of the games that you own instead of it just being games in a subscription service. Sony kind of doing the opposite. So about a year ago, Sony released a device called the PlayStation Portal, which was essentially a handheld gaming console, sort of like a Switch, but with PlayStation controllers on the side of it, that instead of it being the console itself, it just streams. So it will connect to your PlayStation 5 and stream games from your PS5 to this device. And at the time, I didn't fully understand, like, how frequently do I want to stream from my console? Like, if I'm in my house, probably just want to play on the console itself. And if I'm out of the house, do I really trust that my home internet is going to be good enough to support a good experience there? So, and a lot of the reviews from many websites said the same thing. Like, it's cool and all, but I don't need another way to play my PlayStation in my house. So Sony is apparently listening, and now it is able to stream games from the PlayStation Plus cloud gaming service, not just from your own PlayStation 5 at home. So a nice move in the right direction. It's a little bit limited in that it's only, 120-ish games that are in the PlayStation Plus catalog, but Xbox has, similar limitations. Xbox Cloud Gaming, it's just a subset of the Xbox Game Pass library and a collection of 50 games that if you've purchased them, you can stream those also. So both services have their limitations on what games can and can't be streamed from these devices. But seeing Sony add this ability makes the $200 PlayStation Portal feel a whole lot more useful, in my opinion. We're going to link to Engadget's article about this, and it was written by the guy who wrote the review of the PlayStation Portal when it came out last year. His review was a lot like what I just said. Like, I don't get this. I don't need to play my PlayStation when I'm at home on a mobile device. So he liked this. He said that his experience playing it and playing these cloud games is really good, like surprisingly good. Like oftentimes better than his experience trying to stream from his PlayStation 5 in the same house. Huh. So yeah, but partly because it sounds like the experience of connecting to your PS5 is flaky. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes the solution is going and turning on your PlayStation 5 manually, which kind of defeats the purpose. Like, if you woke up on Saturday morning and thought, I want to play PlayStation without getting out of bed, and I happen to have the Portal sitting on the nightstand, then the last thing you want to do is get out of bed to go turn on the PlayStation. And I completely sympathize with that because Xbox has streaming from the console on the Android app, and it works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. And the fix is to go and turn on the Xbox manually. So I can't just bash PlayStation here. Xbox has the same problems. But the writer of this article says that the streaming quality is really good. He finds it better than the streaming quality, not just compared to his PlayStation 5, but also compared to the Xbox cloud gaming solutions out there. So if you'd been thinking about a PlayStation Portal, but couldn't quite justify it because it didn't quite meet your needs, but you are in the PlayStation Plus ecosystem, PlayStation Portal might make sense for you now. So definitely worth going and checking this out. See if the library has the games that you'd want to play. I didn't check because why would I? But like there might even be Black Friday deals on the PlayStation Portal right now. So you might even be able to get a deal on it. So good time to buy it if you can. Okay, that's it for our gaming news. Richard, we have more Black Friday deals, and most of these are on the streaming services. Like they all decided, let's all cut rates. But these also have a limited time on them. Almost all of these streaming services are running deals that you have to sign up for by December 2nd, which is not very far away.
No, and it's, I mean, the fact that they're all doing this and most of them are in effect until the 2nd, it's kind of I don't know what you would call that, collusive ring to that, but but hey, this is great for consumers, ironically.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, maybe you don't need all of because we're always telling people you don't need to be subscribed to everything at once. But here's
but you could now.
Right. Here's the reason why you might want to. Hulu ad supported 99 cents a month for a year. This is probably the best deal for a year. Hulu for $1 a month. Why not?
That's 10% of what it would normally cost.
Right. If you need Disney also, They've got the Disney Bundle Duo Basic for $3 a month for a year. Again, another great deal. A lot of these other ones are more limited, except for Peacock. A year of Peacock service for $20. I would totally do this, except if you listened to last week, you know I just signed up for Peacock because my family wanted to watch Twisters again. And if you have a current subscription or did within the last month, you can't get this Peacock deal.
Oh.
So it's their fault that I can't get this, and we'll just have to wait another year to get Peacock again. Paramount Plus with Showtime for $3 a month, but this is limited to 2 months. Max ran a similar deal last year. I signed up for it last time. I'm probably going to do it again. $18 for a 6-month Max subscription. Yes, I'm signing up for this.
Yep.
So that's it on the streaming services.
Wait, did I miss it? Did you discuss the Disney and Hulu bundle?
Yeah. That's $3 a month for 12 months.
How did I miss that? Okay.
Yeah.
Also, a great deal. That's like a quarter of what it would normally cost.
Right. It's both of those are phenomenal deals.
So I have a friend who comes over every Friday night, and we have dinner together, and we hang out and usually watch some TV or stuff like that. And typically we end up watching stuff on Hulu because my friend doesn't have Hulu or Disney. And I just got a text message today. Okay, signed up for the Disney $3 a month bundle. I'll get back with you in 9 months when I'm finished watching everything.
Right. Awesome. I love that. Okay, then there's also some gaming deals that have sprouted up since last week. One of them I even purchased. The Turtle Beach Stealth 700 Gen 3. Richard is like, what is that? It's just a bunch of words and numbers.
Right?
It's a gaming headset. We talked about this back in September, that it was one of the ones that I was super interested in. It's regularly $200. It's $150 right now. This thing's only like 3 months old. Great deal. I'll talk about it in a little bit because I bought it and I have it already. Also, PlayStation 5s are on sale. If you want the Slim with the disc drive, it's $424. That's normally $500. And the PlayStation 5 Slim Digital Edition, it's the one without the Blu-ray drive. That's $374. So $75 off a PlayStation 5. It's a really great deal. It's better than what you can get in Xbox land right now. The Series X is only marked down $20 to $480, and the Series S is marked down $50 to $250. So go and grab these deals because they won't last long, especially on those streaming services. Go and sign up for all of them.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so Richard, it's been a couple weeks. What's going on in your entertainment center?
Yeah, it has been a couple of weeks. It's been since the beginning of the month since we recorded together. So I have watched a bunch of stuff. I have been watching Agatha all along. I'm enjoying that. I'm not finished yet. I still have a few episodes left. Been watching Jessica Jones season 2. We are up to date on What We Do in the Shadows, and I'm really bummed that I think there's only like 3 or 4 episodes left in the season. And I think this is the last season. This has been such a fun show. I've really enjoyed this. Abbott Elementary, I'm up to date on that. I'm about an episode behind on Star Trek Lower Decks. That has been very funny this season. All the usual references. So John, who was in our chat earlier this evening, he and I typically will talk a little bit about the Lower Decks episodes, and he'll bring something up like, oh, did you get the reference to this episode from Deep Space Nine where so-and-so did the... I'm like, no. How did you catch that? I don't understand. I mean, it's just full of those kinds of things, very Simpsons-like in that way, and I love that show. We're up to date on the latest episodes of Ghosts. Silo has started. Season 2 is now on, and I watched the first episode. I really liked it. I didn't know where they were going to take the season. I still don't know. By the time this evening ends, actually, by the time this episode is out, the 3rd episode should be out. So if you were watching this show, I encourage you to get back on it. It's been really really good. And I need to watch those most recent 2 episodes. I have been watching, as I usually do, Weekend Update from Saturday Night Live on YouTube, because the cold open and Weekend Update are really the only things that I'm usually interested in, unless something gets a whole lot of attention and it's like, oh, you got to catch this. It's really funny. I don't know. I mean, Saturday Night Live is still good, but for some reason now a whole hour of it seems like a lot. So I like that you can just do it bit by bit on YouTube. We are also still watching Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. That's in its 2nd season. I think that has been renewed. I'm not sure yet, but I don't know where things are going to stand, because I kind of have I'm amongst the people who have a problem with Amazon right now, since the owner, well, not owner, but since the founder and largest shareholder of Amazon also owns a newspaper that decided to take a recess for this election. So I don't know if we're going to end up renewing our service or not, but we are enjoying that show. And then just one evening we decided, you know what, let's just poke around on some of these shows that you can get from stuff like the Discovery Network and things like that on Max. And we found the old show, and I don't know if you ever watched this, Josh, How It's Made. Did you ever watch that show?
No, I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I never watched it.
So it's this formulaic thing where they take 3 things and they have a segment for each of those, and it's a narrated thing with voiceover showing either like companies' industrial, like automated lines, or people actually making stuff. And it could be anything from like a custom made Western saddle to a Coke bottle, right? Like it's just, it could be anything that you wondered, how do you make this thing? And so we started watching a couple episodes of this, and we forgot how often, and it was kind of a running joke when the show was on, that they would often refer to the people who were the trades folk working on things, workers. A worker takes the item off the line and moves it to the next thing. So we were joking that we should probably just make a drinking game out of every time you hear the word a worker, or in the case of automated lines, an extruder, because it just came up so often. It was ridiculous. So, but watch a couple of episodes. It's a fun show, and it's still interesting because a lot of manufacturing really has not changed that much for just daily goods. So in the movie front, I watched 2 movies over the past few weeks. Argylle on Apple TV. This is kind of like a spoof spy story that was highly promoted and didn't get a whole lot of attention from the press. So everybody thought it was terrible. And then people started watching and they're like, hey, this is actually pretty funny. So I did, and I liked it, and I recommend it if you're into spy stuff, and particularly if you also like an occasional spy spoof, then you will probably like this movie. I too watched Twisters because you talked about watching it on the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, all right, well, if it's out on Peacock now, I should probably watch it. I do want to watch it. It was fine. It was fine.
That's all you've got is fine?
It was fine. I don't think it was as good as the original or the first, or however they're positioning them in relation to each other. When one of the movie's main characters was talking to someone and then planning to go visit that person while they were on the road, I was convinced they were going to do a cameo with Helen Hunt.
Mm.
And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And they never really explain how this new team has and is using and enhancing the old, like last movie's team's technology. I don't think they give you a reasonable explanation for that.
They don't.
So I feel like they just didn't do a good job of tying it together. I did like the twist of the overarching twist of the movie. I thought was really cool. So I would recommend, if you have some spare time, it's a good movie to watch. It wasn't amazing, but I enjoyed it.
It's not amazing, but it's good, wholesome entertainment.
Yeah, and I mean, in comparison, I loved Twister. I thought Twister was like a nail biter. I thought it was really well done. I have probably seen that movie a dozen times, if not more, and I think I've probably watched it in its entirety in the last year.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a movie that holds up. It absolutely holds up.
Maybe I should rewatch the original.
Also,
and when I was
amazing
a teen,
soundtrack.
The new one or the old one?
The old one. I couldn't tell you anything that's in the new one. I have no idea.
We really like the new one. It's a whole lot of like good country music. If you like country music, you'll probably.
Oh yeah,
like
that's true. Yeah, it was. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I really liked the original Twister back then. I don't honestly remember that much about it, but I remember liking it a lot. But I also really had a thing for Helen Hunt back then too, so that helps.
There you go.
Yeah, Matt, about you and Twister? Yeah, I was fully on board with both of those back in the 90s.
All right. And then I mentioned that I hadn't had a chance to start the new audiobook that I was interested in, Cue the Sun, which is a history of reality television. And I did start that, and it's really good. I mean, they go way, way back. And right now, I think we're in the 70s, 80s period. They're talking about the history of Chuck Barris, who was, I think I'm pronouncing his name right, the guy behind The Gong Show and The Dating Game and Newlyweds Game and all of these kind of game shows that exploited people for entertainment purposes, and talking about how that was really kind of the predecessor to a lot of today's reality television. So that's been really good. And I wanted to add one more thing on here, and something you mentioned earlier reminded me of this. I every once in a while we talk about podcasts that we're listening to. So I wanted to revisit that. I wanted to get back to discussing podcasts that we enjoy and that we listen to and help other podcasters out. And the first one I'm going to mention is not going to be any surprise to people. I'm a big Mac fan, and I got to know the guy who created the podcast Mac OS Ken. It is a daily 10 to 15 minute show about Apple news, and he's still going strong after like 17 or 18 years now, something like that. It's crazy. And it is my first show that I listen to every single day. The reason that I thought about it is because his recent sponsor was Turtle Beach, promoting their new headset.
There you go. It all comes around.
It does indeed. All right, that's it for me. How about you, Josh?
Well, let's talk about that Turtle Beach Stealth 700 Gen 3. And in fact, if you're watching the video on YouTube, you can even see it, because I got the really pretty one that's like, it's almost like a copper color in parts. It's really
it's like copper there. I like that.
Yeah. So I didn't just buy it because it's a pretty headset. It's also got a lot of really great features. So the main cool thing about this particular headset is it's a wireless headset that will connect to two consoles without you having to like move transmitters around and stuff, because it comes with two USB dongles. I got the Xbox One, of course, and So you plug the Xbox dongle into your Xbox, and the other one can go into your PlayStation, your Switch, your PC, whatever. And then on the headset, there's a button that just switches between what device it's connected to. I've only used the switching a little bit, but it switched perfectly. It also has Bluetooth and works with what they consider a simultaneous Bluetooth connection. So it is connected to my phone while also being connected to the Xbox or the PlayStation or whatever. And anybody who's been listening to this show for a long time knows that I've always been like, what's the point? I don't need to be connected to my phone while I'm gaming because I don't listen to podcasts while I'm gaming. I don't listen to music while I'm gaming. And even if I did, there's a Spotify app on the Xbox that I could just use. And then the very first time I went to use it, I found a really great use case for this. My daughter wanted to play Minecraft with me, but she didn't want to bring her laptop into the same room. She's like, can't we just chat on the headsets? And I'm like, sure, we can do that. But it was a Sunday afternoon and there was other football going on. And I thought, this headset is already paired with my phone. I could put a football game on my phone, turn the volume down on the phone audio in the headset so that it's just loud enough for me to barely hear it, but still be able to adequately hear the game, which it's Minecraft, like you don't really need to hear much there, and more than adequately hear my daughter over voice chat. And that was a really cool use case for me because I do regularly, like if I'm playing a game that isn't like where it's 100% attention required all the time, like maybe it's Call of Duty and you've got a couple minutes in between each match, or it's hockey and you've got a minute intermission or something like that. Like when I'm playing games like that, sometimes I'll grab my iPad and put a hockey game on or put a football game on. But the reality is that if I can't hear it, I never end up looking at the thing that's on my iPad because you don't have that audio cue of like, oh, maybe you want to check this out.
Mm-hmm.
This gives me that audio cue and like maybe tells me, maybe you want to pause the game for a second and watch the hockey game for a moment if you're not playing an online game. So I think that's a really cool feature, and I think I'm actually going to end up using it a ton, even though I thought this isn't a feature I care about.
So would it not be good just in the case that you get a phone call while you're playing a game?
That would also be good. But Richard, who calls people on the phone?
You are not so young that nobody uses the phone anymore. Come on.
I don't talk on my phone very often. Jen and I talk on the phone fairly regularly, I guess, but outside of that, I don't talk on the phone very often.
Okay.
Yeah. So outside of that, let's see. Battery life is amazing. It has 80-hour battery life. It, of course, uses USB-C for charging. The mic is fine. Like, don't buy this headset if you're thinking, I want amazing headphones and a microphone where I can run $1 million YouTube channel. It's
You're
not
not going to sound like a sportscaster.
No, it's good enough for game chat. It's not great for like content creation. The sound out of the headphones is good. Also, if you like a headset that blocks out a lot of ambient noise around you, then you'll like this too. If you don't like that, then maybe that's the biggest reason not to get this headset on top of the price. But especially given the Black Friday deal of $150 for this headset, it's really punching above its weight class at that price. Like, this is a headset that is very competitive with $300 headsets, even if you have to pay the full $200 for this headset. It's really,
Nice.
really good. Really good. But that's not even the only audio device that I bought, because I also replaced my earbuds with Pixel Buds Pro 2. And this is really my first time buying like premium earbuds. I've had a lot of like mid to upper-ish tier Jabra earbuds for years, and they've been fine for my primary use case, which is phone calls, apparently not often, and listening to podcasts all the time. And they're great. They're really, really nice. They're super comfy. The sound quality is really good. The active noise cancellation seems really good. Like, it's great around the house. Is it great on an airplane? I don't know. I haven't been on an airplane yet with them because I just got them this weekend. It was the wrong time of year for me to get an ANC equipped set of headphones because I don't have any flights immediately planned and I'm not mowing the lawn right now. And those are the two cases where I need ANC the most. But I'm using it a lot more around the house than I would have expected. Like, I listen to podcasts as soon as I get out of the shower. My headphones go in to start listening to podcasts. And so using the ANC to block out the noise of the exhaust fan in the bathroom is nice. The mic is really good for phone calls. I tested that with Jen. She was like, go and run the sink, because that is a painful experience.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm ever talking to you and you're filling up a glass of water or whatever.
Yep.
And so I went and did that. And she's like, okay, turn on the sink. I'm like, it is on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Nice.
really impressive. Great for her. I mean, I guess it'll be great for me if other people get these headphones.
And it means that it gives you more freedom while you're talking on the phone, right? Like, you don't have to be worried about how much noise you're making
right
while you're having a conversation with someone.
Exactly. And then it's all touch controls on the earbuds themselves. There's no physical buttons, and I was a little bit nervous about that, but it works really well. It's a single tap for play and pause, of course. A double tap to skip forward, which is really nice for skipping forward in podcast.
Yep.
And then swipe forward and back for volume. And it's been good. Like, there's a little bit of an adjustment period when you get new headphones, right? Because you got to find out, like, you've got to train your arm where exactly you're going to find those buttons. But, it's 3 days in and I've pretty much got that mastered. The only thing I don't like about them, and I'm curious if this is true with AirPods and stuff, the only way to turn off one of these earbuds is to put it back in the case. That's it. With my Jabras, there were physical buttons on them. You hold the button down and it turns it off. And I use that a lot because I typically just walk around with one earbud in, listening to podcasts, and maybe I'll decide I'm going to stay downstairs for a while. And so I'll turn the earbud off and stick it in my pocket until I go back upstairs and find the case, because I don't walk around with the case in my pocket. And now I kind of have to walk around with the case all the time. And I don't love that.
I walk around with a case all the time. Yeah. It's funny because my sarcastic reaction to this is, what is this turn off you speak of? Because I've never even thought about turning off my AirPods. Like, that, I don't even understand what that would mean, really. Does it stop drawing power in a way that's different than if it's just sitting on a table or in your pocket?
So the big thing is, like, let's say I've got one earpod in, I leave the case at my desk, I go downstairs for a while, and then I just, like, I'm going to start working, so I don't listen to podcasts while I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
So I set the earbud down,
Yeah.
and then I go somewhere else in my house, and then I get a phone call. If it's still connected to my phone, then I have to, like, answer the call and then quickly switch it to the phone instead of the earbud, because it's going to go to the earbud first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Apple solves this with sensors in each device that if it's not actually in your ear, and I don't know what it's specifically sensing, but I'm assuming it's some sort of tactile thing, just like pressing a button would be. If it's not actually in your ear, then it's not active. So if they're just laying out on a counter and you get a phone call, they're not going to answer it. Your phone's going to answer it.
See, I don't think that's the case with these. I think they'll eventually time out if they don't get any audio and turn off. But, there's a little icon in the taskbar or whatever we call it, the status bar. I don't know. In Android.
Okay.
It shows when you've got Bluetooth headphones connected. And if I take one out and set it on my desk, that icon is still there. So it's still connected. And I think if I were to get a call, it would go to the earbud. But I guess I could test it.
Interesting. Yeah, I would. Wow. Yeah, I don't think the AirPods work that way.
Okay. Well, yeah. So there's other cool features that I haven't totally tested out yet. Like they have spatial audio stuff, but I haven't played around with that yet. And I am pretty sure they work with Auracast, but I don't have a phone that supports Auracast yet. So maybe in the spring, when I'm done with the stupid payment plan on my current Pixel 6, then maybe I'll get a Pixel 9 and really dig into all of that.
Cool.
So, all right. So that's my new gear. On the game front, played some Diablo, played a bunch of Call of Duty. Also, I've been really interested in this game. It came out earlier this year. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing all of this correct. It's made by an African studio. So it's called Tales of Kinzara Zhao. And it's a Metroidvania kind of game. It's smallish, it's like a 7 or 8 hour game. It looks cool. It looks like it has a really good story. Like it was giving me a lot of vibes from like Ori and the Blind Forest. And I was like, this sounds right up my alley. And I've been wanting a Metroidvania. So I put it on my wish list and waited for it to go on sale. It's on sale right now for half off. And last night I was like, screw it. Let's just go buy it. And then I noticed there's also a trial of this game. Like there's it's probably a half hour, 45-minute trial. You can play this for free to try it out. It's good. I'm definitely buying it. If you like Metroidvanias, go and buy this game. It is $10 on Xbox right now. And you're supporting a small studio that's kind of been struggling financially too, but despite making a really good game. So go in and help out a good studio and enjoy a great game.
Cool. What are those two words you keep on saying? Metroidvania?
A Metroidvania?
What is that?
It's a genre of video games. It's a combination of the games Metroid and Castlevania. They had very similar play styles. And so now we just call any game like that a Metroidvania.
Okay.
Yeah. Gamers know what it means, even if you don't, Richard.
Yeah, well, me, not a gamer.
Right. On TV, Lions football, of course. But like Richard, we renewed our Apple TV Plus subscription so that we could start watching Silo Season 2. Maybe the one tip I will give to people, I agree with everything Richard said. It's really good. We watched the first 2 episodes. It's really good. It is very dark. These are silos. And they don't necessarily always have a lot of lighting in these silos. I actually adjust my TV settings when we watch this because it is so dark. So maybe that's my one tip. Turn up your brightness for silos.
Funny you bring that up because, and I should have mentioned this in my entertainment center stuff. It was after I watched the first episode of this that I reached out to my friend Gavin over on the Home Tech Show, who has the same TV that we have and has fixed the problem where over time the TV gets darker and darker and darker until you like get out of what you're watching, get back to like a new screen or something with more motion, and then reverts back to full brightness again. And it literally takes a separate remote that I had to buy to be able to get into a service menu.
Oh, no.
To turn some basically screen saving features off. I don't know if your version is newer than mine is, but I don't know if your version of this TV has the same problem, that I would just be watching a dark scene and it would just get darker and darker and darker. And I would have to get out of this, what I was watching, get back to a menu. It would go back up to full brightness and then it'd go in again and I could sort of see things again. And this show was so dark that I'm like, okay, I have to fix this problem. I can't stand it anymore.
Yeah. Jeez. Well, I mean, I did have I don't know that it kept getting darker, but my TV ended up in this OLED care mode, and it basically just turns everything dimmer. And so I had to get it out of OLED care and switch it back to like cinema or whatever the mode is that I normally put it in. But even that is still really dark for this show.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like you need vivid mode to watch some of these, which everyone will tell you don't use at home. But for shows like this, it does help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly the mode I put. I think it's called Cinema Vivid or something like that. So it's not like full torch mode. But it is definitely a brighter version. And then I've got to remember to put it back to normal and all of that stuff. But it's just too dark. It's just too dark.
I would agree.
Yeah. Okay. And books. I almost confused myself because I'm like, I just talked about Silo. Well, I'm also reading Silo. It started as a book series. I read the books way back in like 2013 when these came out, and I loved them. That's how I knew about this show before it came out. And so I reread the first book. The first book is Wool, I think. And as I was reading it, that's when I remembered season 1 of the show, that's not all of book 1. It is only halfway through book 1. So I have a feeling that the second half of book 1 will be season 2. But it's moving a little bit slow. So I'm wondering if we're even going to get through book 1 for all of season 2. We'll see. But then so I've also started on book 2, which I think is called Shift. And then I thought, maybe I shouldn't. Like, I'm already so far ahead of the show. Maybe I should hold off on reading books 2 and 3.
Because you could spoil yourself.
Yeah, because I don't really remember how this ends. And as we were watching season 2, Jen was like, I cannot wait for the final scene of the show. And I'm like, I have no clue what happened at the end of this book. So maybe I should just stop and save it a little bit more.
I think you should.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for what's going on in my entertainment center also. So let's tell people how they can get a hold of us. Email address entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com. All of our contact information is over on the website, www.thedigitalmediazone.com. We're on socials. Richard is still only on Mastodon. He's Richard Gunther over there. Me and the website are on Twitter still, sort of, at Josh Pollard, at DigiMediaZone. I am spending way more time on Blue Sky now. If you were on Twitter back when it was good in the early days, get on Blue Sky.
This is what everybody is saying.
This is
what everybody's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, you should friggin' listen and go join us on Blue Sky, Richard.
Yeah.
I know you missed out on your name, but you should still come. There's one downside to it that I'm not liking, and it's crazy that I'm upset about this. You know how Twitter, maybe you don't remember this, but Twitter would give you notifications about like popular posts that you might want to see and stuff like that. Blue Sky doesn't do that. And I miss that. Like, I do want to be notified when
No.
I do, like, because I'm not looking at Blue Sky or social media in general all the time. I need reminders to be like, oh, that's an interesting article that I might want to go and read or whatever. And Blue Sky doesn't notify me of just like random post. It does notify you of like replies and new followers and stuff. I want to know when, I don't know, various hockey person or game person or engineering leadership person post something.
What you just described, as far as I'm concerned, is a tick mark in the win column.
Yet another reason that you should come join us on Blue Sky. Yeah. We also usually put this out as a YouTube video, so go and subscribe to us on YouTube also. And then we also usually, sometimes, most of the time, record the show live too. So follow us on Twitch there to get automatically notified, or how we're usually pretty good about posting on the various social services when we're going live, which is regularly, usually Tuesdays around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Man, that's a lot of, what's the word for that?
Disclaimers, hedging?
Hedging, yeah, hedging I think is the right word. Listen, we make best with what we can do, sorry.
Yep.
So, that is going to do it for episode 669. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.